I gained over 300 LP in one day mostly playing this comp, and the comp is Draven Cypher Reroll. Now it's similar to the LeBlanc Cypher Reroll comp, pretty much the same, but the emphasis is on Draven, as they do a crap ton of damage. So let me walk you through how you exactly play it, and how I gained 300 LP in one day with this comp, made it to Masters and Double Up. Let me give you the secret sauce. Let's go. Welcome. Another TFT breakdown. I appreciate you joining me here today. We're going to be talking about Cypher Reroll with an emphasis on Draven. Draven is going to be the main carry of this build. We're going to go through everything regarding augments, items, final board, early board, and then the gameplay you're seeing on screen. So kick back, relax, grab a coffee, grab a drink, and let's break down some TFT. Alright, let's talk items. Items are very crucial in this build, especially when you're considering Draven. So Draven, in my opinion, is the carry of this build. Obviously, you're going to be 3-starring LeBlanc, Draven, and Galio. Hopefully even 3-starring a Vi potentially, and 2-starring your Zed. But Draven is the powerhouse in terms of damage. So itemizing Draven is key. You're going to need a lot of gloves. So gloves are a carousel priority in addition to tears. Tears more so for LeBlanc, as you want that magic damage early on as well. However, Draven is the key. So gloves on carousel, gloves when you can. Start slamming gloves on Draven. You're going to want to make IE, Last Whisper, and Striker's Flail. So those are the three major items you want to put on Draven. Obviously, if you can't make all three, you can settle for a Deathblade or any other AD items. But those three are the best in class. Switching gears over to LeBlanc. LeBlanc is obviously the secondary carry that you're going to want to itemize. And they like the standard LeBlanc items. As I mentioned in the previous video, you can see that video up here if you want to have a look at that. But Shojin's, Gunblade, and Void Staff work perfectly on her. So that's why tier is your secondary priority when it comes to carousel. Moving on to Galio. Galio is your main tank because obviously you're going to 3-star them. Hopefully you get a solid Ornn item. I still call it Ornn item, but artifact item. But if you don't hit that, the standard items are going to be Warmogs. You can put a Sunfires, Gargoyles, Spirit Visage. That all works really well on Galio. Now, if you have a plethora of items, you can itemize Zed. And then if you go level 9, you can itemize Renekton. More realistically, game in, game out, you're going to be itemizing Zed as the 4th item holder. You're going to want typical Zed items, so i.e. you can do Edge of Night, you can do Hodge, you can do Bloodthirster, any of those work. Essentially whatever you have left over, as you can't be too picky with Zed, as you need to prioritize the Draven, LeBlanc, and Galio, as that's where majority of your damage is going to come from. Majority of your tank eating up damage is going to come from in terms of Galio, but Draven and LeBlanc are priority. If you can, you go Zed. So we'll talk about augments a little bit later, but binary airdrop is a great one, as you can put 2 items on each of these carries and have them completely maxed out item wise. This allows you to itemize your Zed, maybe even your Zeri late game, or that Renekton like I mentioned, if you do end up, or if you are able to go level 8, level 9. With that being said, there's a couple artifact items as well that you can put on different carries. So for LeBlanc, you can put Manazane or Wit's End. Both work really well. You can also use a Rage Blade on LeBlanc if you have a lot of additional items such as bows that you can't quite make a Void Staff or stuff like that with LeBlanc. You can go Shojin's, Rage Blade, just to have them consistently cast. Now in terms of artifact items for Draven, there's not really many you can do. You can do Gold Collector if you stumble upon it from that gold generating augment early on. Otherwise, just stick to the regular collect gloves, slam Striker's Flail, slam Last Whisper, and then slam Infinity Edge. Those are going to be your best bet. It'll carry you once you finish cashing out in the build, which we'll get to in the next session when we talk about gameplay and strategy. But for right now, items, you want those 3 as the prior on Draven, as he will be your main damage dealer throughout the course of the cash out and beyond. So let's jump into the next section. I'll see you there. Welcome to the early game section. Here we're going to talk about what you do early game when you want to play this build. So whether or not the game's actually giving it to you, or you're trying to force it because it's uncontested in the lobby, both simultaneously do work, especially low elo, high elo, doesn't matter. You can play this build as long as nobody else is playing it. So if you find yourself in a lobby where even though you don't have Cypher players off of the rip and no one else is playing it, you can force this build starting the following stage, so stage 3. Not every game is going to be the same, so you have to go with what you have in this situation when you're playing Cypher, and not essentially force it if someone else already has a line for Cypher early and is looking like they're going to be going Cypher potentially even. Okay, so with that being said, obviously the best early comp for this build is Cypher. So if you get lucky enough and you get a Vi, you get a LeBlanc, Draven, Galio off of rip, and you play them, you are smooth sailing. You have everything you need for a strong early game, hopefully a loss streak, although this build specifically, loss streaking, you can get away without doing it. Obviously, loss streaking with Cypher is key, as you want as big as a cash out as possible. However, you don't need a massive cash out to win with this board. So with going this reroll build, you essentially just need to cash out and then have your key big three, I call them, 3-starred. Once they're 3-starred with a cash out, they have that extra ability power attack damage from the Cypher trait, and they are rolling late game. But, however, if you get Cypher early, specifically all 4 Cyphers, the big 3 and Vi, then you just play it, lose streak if you can, until you can max out that cash out, and you go from there. Early game with those 4 is extremely easy. You don't even have to worry about anything else. Throughout the game, you can add an Echo if you want strategist there with LeBlanc. If you get a Zed, even better. You have 5 Cypher as early as you get the Zed. You can put another Bastion up front with Galio, Vanguard to complement Vi. It doesn't really matter. At that point, you are trying to lose. So if you get the 4, you're good to go. Now, the tricky part early game is if you don't get the 4. So if you find yourself in a position where you may not even get any Cypher, chances are you will find a Vi, potentially a LeBlanc. But if that's the case, and you're starting off stage 2 without Cypher trait activated, just play your best board. The key here is to win as much as you can that first stage. By winning as much as you can, you're preserving your health for a later game loss streak if you are transitioning to Cypher. So at that point, if you're scouting the different boards, you're seeing that maybe there's 2 Exotech players, a Graves player, a TF player, which you can be a little bit weary about with this build. We'll get to that in a bit. And then a Marksman Vanguard, you look in Boombot Urgot, you're seeing that Cypher's completely uncontested. You can still go it in the following stage, as late as stage 3, 1, 3, 2, once you hit those Cypher units. But you need to preserve your health, as I was saying. So you want a win streak. You're going to want maybe a Syndicate start with the 2-star Shaco, start itemizing them with any Draven items or Zed items that you can slam. Same thing goes with maybe a Kog'Maw Vanguard build there. Have Vi up front with a Rost or any other Vanguard you can get early. Hopefully a 2-star Silas, something like that. Something to propel you through that first stage of player combats. Anima Squad's even good early currently. So play Anima Squad early if you get, like I mentioned, a 2-star Silas. You get Alawi as upfront Bastion. Maybe you have a Galio, but you're missing a few others. Tossing Galio. So it's really key to win streak or do your best to win early to preserve that health if you don't get lucky and get all your Cypher players. Once you can activate Cypher, however, I do recommend transitioning right into it before somebody else does. Because someone else could be looking at the board and the game the same way you are and seeing that Cypher's uncontested, knowing how strong of a build it is currently, they're going to want to go it as well. So the quicker you can get 3 Cypher, toss it in the board, show your line to everybody else scouting, the easier you're going to have the game fall into your lap. As soon as you get contested here, it makes it a little bit trickier. Good news with Cypher, there's a lot of outs because you're building up that intel, you can cash out, and then maybe you just go Exotech with that added money, added funds from the Cypher intel. It makes it a little bit harder in that sense. However, by winning that first stage early game, if you don't get Cypher right away, you have the health to play with. If you get Cypher right away, however, and you're losing, you can't really transition too much, so you're really banking on that scouting ability of yours to make sure you're uncontested. That's the key there. As long as you're uncontested going this build, you're guaranteed, in my opinion, a top 2, but for sure a top 4. Now we're going to discuss late game. So late game can vary here. The boards, I've seen a few different variations of the boards. I play variations of the boards as well, depending on how the game's going. So typically you want your big 3. Galio, Draven, LeBlanc. You want those 3-starred. Those are in your build till the very end. All of them itemized. Then you have Zed and Vi. You're going to want to keep that there as you want the 5 Cypher after you've cashed out with the intel bonus. You need that in play, so having those on your board are key. When you go level 7 there, you can make a couple of choices. You can have Jarvan in there. Jarvan gives you Vanguard Slayer for your Zed and Vi. Additionally, you can have Zeri as well. Having Zeri on the board gives you the rapid fire with Draven. As I mentioned, Draven's going to be your main carry. Extremely strong. Activate the rapid fire trait for him and you're smooth sailing. So Zeri is a must as a counterpart to Draven. Again, you can put any rapid fire in if you can't find a Draven at that stage. But the tricky part is when you are rolling for the 3-star, you're going to be level 7 the entire game, or most of the game there. So you can only have so many units on your board at once. Chances are you will 3-star your LeBlanc first most of the time. Having LeBlanc fully itemized as well, you kind of want a strategist activated for LeBlanc. So Echo is a big choice, or a big option to put in your board early. So you can swap out even that Jarvan. If you have a 1-star Zed, you can have, instead of Jarvan, have Echo in there for the time being at level 7 to boost your LeBlanc. Same thing with Zeri, rapid fire to boost your Draven. Chances are until you 3-star them and cash out, that's not going to be the greatest regardless. But once you cash out and you have everything solidified, you can vary depending on your items that you have available, who's the stronger unit, and you can go for either that Zeri, Jarvan, Echo, and exchange them interchangeably. Now, Renekton comes into the mix as well. Renekton is very, very strong because it does provide the Bastion trait to your 3-star Galio. So this is kind of a maneuver of activating your traits throughout the late game. You're going to have to sacrifice one once you're level 8. So you can't put everybody in there. You have to make yourself an informed decision based on your board, based on how your game's going, who to leave out. So it's going to be one of the 4 that you're going to be missing out on. It's going to be Renekton, Jarvan, Zeri, and Echo. You're going to have to drop one of those. I find in my games most of the time, until I get a 2-star Zed, I find myself dropping Jarvan. I prefer the Echo strategist, Zeri rapid fire, and if I find them, a Renekton Bastion for the Galio ahead of that Jarvan Slayer Vanguard buff. Now, once I 2-star my Zed and start getting some items for Zed, I much prefer the Jarvan on the board. I like keeping the Zeri because, like I mentioned, Draven is your primary carry here. They're the damage dealer. That rapid fire trait buff is key. So I keep Zeri in there with Jarvan once I have my 2-star Zed. I find myself leaving out the Renekton, as chances are I'm not finding it 2-star. Some games at level 8, I'm not finding it at all. So that will make your decision making a lot easier if you don't even find a Renekton, because then you can slam Echo in there. However, your main damage dealer is Draven, so that rapid fire is necessary. And then you can toss in that Echo, maybe keep the Renekton on your bench until you find it 2-starred, or you find one in general. Then you can swap out the Echo if need be, as the only thing it's giving is strategist, and your LeBlanc regardless is going to do damage, strategist or not. Now, staying on late game, you're still going to want to cash out when it's best for you. Every game's going to be different. In my personal experience, I found switching between 4-3, 4-7, and then sometimes even that 3-5. I believe it's 3-5 it lets you cash out. Whatever the one before 4-3 is, those are the 3 options you're most likely going to cash out in. If you're having a great game where you won a lot early and then you ended up winning, not really lose streaking throughout the game, as well as you had a strong-ish board, you can wait till 4-7 if you're at least 2 lives. I find 2 lives are the key. You're always going to assume you're going to lose to a board potentially stronger than you at some point. So having 2 lives is key. If you have 2 lives and you can wait till 4-7, by all means, wait till 4-7, grab that massive cash out. The extra bonus from the intel is huge as well. Now, that's not going to happen every single game. Chances are you're going to be cashing out most of the time at 4-3. 4-3 is the key. Cash out whenever you're there and available, unless the previous one at 3-5, you find that you have an amazing cash out. So if it gives you a bunch of duplicators or any kind of Cypher traits or like a 2-star Draven, that kind of thing, those cash outs, that's what you want to go for. Something to bolster your team and have you 3-star them quicker, allowing you to access the Cypher Intel cash as well for that bonus AP AD. So that's when you go 3-5. Typically, most games are going to be going that 4-3. Cash out whatever you get, unless it's completely garbage. But regardless, the intel's worth more by itself, giving you the bonus. So 3-5, 4-3, 4-7, your ideal cash outs for the late game with that final board, the big 3-3-starred, and then you're smooth sailing, in my opinion, to a guaranteed top 4. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time to talk augments. So there's a few of them that are exceptionally good, and then I have some that are a little bit niche, but work wonders with this build as well. You just got to hear me out on. Let's just start with the main ones. So calculated loss. If you get that and you have a Cypher start, it is disgusting. It is so easy to win out games if you have that augment. So basically, calculated loss, if you don't know off the top of your head, after you lose your after you lose a combat round, you gain 2 gold and a free shop reroll. So essentially what that means is you put in Cypher, you start losing, you get free gold, you get free rerolls for when you hit level 7. Chef's kiss, this augment is beautiful. Another augment on the same category as that one for this build is Hostile Takeover. Now, Hostile Takeover is a little more tricky to pull off as you need to essentially win. For those of you that don't know, Hostile Takeover, it grants you the intel that you would get once you cash out in terms of combat bonus right away. So the intel that you kind of accumulate is based on kills, and you only get 30% from losses. So you get 200% bonus intel from each kill of an enemy champion versus 30% bonus for just a loss. So if you take this augment, it is beautiful. You do need to win streak, however, and you need to try your best to win as much as possible. So you would essentially have those win streak builds early with Cypher in to maximize the Hostile Takeover augment. You're going to want to do your best to win rounds so you can do Vanguard rapid fire. So maybe a 2-star Kog'Maw, slam Draven items on Kog'Maw. If you need to slam a Rage Blade, you can slam a Rage Blade, because the goal is to win with Cypher in for that augment specifically. However, if you do it right and you start winning, the cash out is insane from it. You can get an insane amount with this specific augment. A good silver one you can use is Titanic Titan. The reason why Titanic Titan is good is you get an increase of health by 25, player health that is, and you're released earlier on the carousel rounds. Now, if you don't mind moving that super slow in carousel rounds, I personally hate it, so I rarely take this augment, but it makes sense in the Cypher game because that 25 extra player health is key. It lets you maybe get to that 4-7 cash out round. So that's a great silver augment you can take when silver augments aren't the greatest in general. Alternatively, there is a shop glitch, which essentially refreshes your shop every non-combat round, every 2.5 seconds for 28 seconds. So if you're level 7 and you get to Wolves or the next one after Wolves, I forget the name of the PvE round, but you should be able to 3-star your big 3 quicker than without this augment. Alternatively, Prismatic, you can get Binary Airdrop, which we talked about a little bit earlier, to maximize your items. You can do Buried Treasures, again, to maximize your items. Or you can do Shopping Spree. Shopping Spree, you gain a number of free shop refreshes equal to your level +1, and you gain 2 gold. So it's all about getting those free shop refreshes. Same thing with Trade Sector in the gold section. Gives you the free shop refresh every round. Super beneficial in this reroll comp. You can also get Heroic Grab Bag if it's early there for the 2 champ dupes. I would recommend having some combat augments late game with this as well to truly maximize your burst output in the late game, as that's when you're going to hit hard. You're going to lose all your player health, you're going to reroll, 3-star the big 3, cash out your intel, and that's when you hit the lobby. And you have to hit them hard, because if you don't hit them hard and you're 2 lives, 1 life, you're screwed. So having a solid combat augment, Piercing Lotus for example, works beautifully. You get Piercing Lotus, Prismatic Augment late, you cash out, you 3-star everybody, and the lobby didn't know what hit them. You're completely winning the game in that situation, pending a 3-star 4 cost. So those are the main items. But then I did say I was going to bring some to your attention where I was like, okay, hear me out. So hear me out on these couple. Now, XP augments aren't the greatest for a reroll build in this situation. However, I have found success with slamming in this situation. The reason for that is it allows you to get to level 7 as soon as possible. By slamming the items that you get with the augment and getting the extra bonus 3 XP every single round without an item on your bench, you get to 7 as quickly as possible. Because you're going to be staying 7 there and you're not leveling, you're only getting that 3 XP a round. So it's not a big deal once you get to 7. It'll slowly progress you to 8, as you're going to have to go 8 anyway. We just talked about late game boards and the kerfuffle you have with Jarvan, Zeri, Renekton, and Echo. And that solves itself if you're slowly gaining levels while you're re-rolling for your 3-star big 3. So having that is, in my opinion, beneficial. You get to level 7 as quickly as possible. You can start 3-starring those big 3 as quickly as possible. And then, essentially, once you've 3-starred them, you can level to 8, maybe even level to 9 with this build, which gives you a solution to the champion issue where you can have Jarvan, Zeri, Renekton, and Echo all on the board at the same time. So, Slammin' is my official hear me out augment. of this build. If you see it, take it. Let me know how it works for you. I've tried it with this build. It works wonders. I don't know. It's not recommended on most build sites. It's only ever worked for me using that strategy. So give it a try. See if it works for you. I highly recommend it. That was the augment section. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over the gameplay, the rest of the gameplay, take a look at the cash out, break it down on how I played that specific gameplay. If you're not sticking around for the gameplay, make sure you subscribe. I appreciate you being here. I'll catch you on the next one. If you're sticking around for the gameplay, let's dive into it. All right, gameplay breakdown time. Here we go. You just saw in the gameplay that we cashed out. We went against our own advice. It got a little bit risky there at the end because we cashed out with 1 life here. We have 11 health and all 8 players are alive. This I don't recommend doing. I got away with it, but sometimes you're not going to get away with it. This build is good enough that if you do hit, like I did, even without the big 3, all 3 starts, so Galio's still currently missing, I was still able to put together enough wins with the extra damage provided by that 406 intel cash out to allow me to place in the points in this game here. However, I don't recommend risking it with 1 life. In this situation, I probably should have cashed out 4-3 rather than the 4-7, but I just went for it. I knew it was going to be kind of close, but in that situation, knowing the strength of this build and knowing I was uncontested mattered in my decision, and I knew I would just eventually hit and be able to clear almost everybody in the lobby. Now again, like I mentioned, it's risky because it's 1 life instead of 2, so if you go up against like this build, if this build was completely maxed out with the Boombot Urgot, I would have been screwed. But thankfully, when I'm facing it here, this person's got, let's see, how much health? 76 health. If I face them down the line when they're completely 2-starred all their 5 cost, I would have lost. But because that wasn't the case, and with the added Cypher damage, I cleared their board pretty easily. So that's just how it goes. It was one of those ones. I didn't like the cash out in this game. I don't know. Let me know if you guys prefer the fawn there. So the Tactician's Crown as a cash out. I didn't like it that much. I knew I would have had the funds to roll down, maybe go up to 8 without the extra 10 gold and then the extra unit. But it wasn't the worst cash out in the world, so I was okay with it. But regardless, the only issue with it is I couldn't actually put it on a unit because I did take sponging as a prismatic augment, allowing essentially people, units with 1 or less item to have it pop off the closest item to them and they get that item. You know what I mean with that augment. You'll see it in action here in the next round. But regardless, I didn't want to put that on a unit because it could potentially pop as one of the items that goes to another unit and then just be completely useless. So regardless, I kept it on my bench for the rest of the game. Gold or no gold, I didn't need it at this point. I was just staring at that Galio 3 in my shop, just waiting to hit, hoping I would survive one more round with that 406 intel buff to allow me to purchase it. And it looked a little hairy here, it was getting a little close, but we did actually clear this board with a LeBlanc ult at the end to save us. This is why essentially you need those 2 lives, because even though this is really strong, you still need to 3-star all of your units before you get that maximum damage tank eating output from Galio, LeBlanc, and Draven. So we were able to hit by 5-6. Ideally, you want to hit a lot earlier with this build. If you want to 3-star the big 3 ahead of time, as close into stage 5 as possible, as this is where you do your damage. The outputs to player damage are increased in stage 5, so this is where you want to hit everybody hard and knock them down a ladder. As you see, we started stage 5 with all 8 players still alive and myself with 1 life left. And now we're already in the points, top 4. 4 people are out, and we are still cooking. So Draven doesn't even have 3 items here, and he's the main carry. LeBlanc didn't have 3 items at the start of the stage, and she's the secondary carry. Galio, I want to point out, there's another thing that we added to Galio in terms of the tank items that you can make, and I suggest using in your build, and that's Even Shroud. I'm a big believer of Even Shroud, even if you have the Last Whisper on Draven. And even before, like, let's say you don't make Last Whisper as a prior item, you put Guard Breaker first, i.e. second, whatever. Even Shroud is needed to sunder the opponents. It's necessary on Anima Squad. It's necessary here. It's just an item that I find is a staple in the builds, along with Sunfires, that I love to make every single time. And it got me to Masters in this situation here, with respects to slamming those items almost religiously throughout all my games. So playing this build whenever I have an uncontested line currently is my favorite build to go. I recommend that you do it as well, as it's just completely broken. Even with a 2-star unitemized Zed, you don't even need it. The Draven, LeBlanc, Galio, they clear boards regardless. Now, this board, essentially, ideally, you're going to want a Renekton as the final player in the board instead of Gragas. Most days you're not getting to level 9. We just have the Tactician's Crown. That's what allowed us to play another champion. But most boards, you're not going to have that luxury. But regardless, it's totally fine. We're seeing here another Boombot build. 2-star Urgot this time, and we still clear it. So this Boombot Fast 9 Urgot build doesn't matter, and it doesn't match up against Cypher, even with our Draven 2 items. Even a 2-item Draven. So that's how impressive this build truly is. I did mention earlier in the video, if you recall, and you're stuck around here still listening to me ramble, there wasn't, I said, a point basically I made to ensure that you're uncontested. I did mention the TF build, so the Twisted Fate Syndicate Reroll build can potentially pose a problem to you. I found it's okay to go against that Twisted Fate build when you're playing Cypher, as most of the time people don't prioritize that 3-star Draven in the Twisted Fate build, as if you're familiar with the build, basically Twisted Fate's counterpart to get that rapid fire trait is Draven, and because you're rolling at 7 for the Braum, Darius, and Twisted Fate, you do accumulate Dravens as well in that build. Some people go for 3-star Draven. Some people see that you go Cypher and they scrap getting 3-star Draven, just get a 2-star. So that could be a pivotal moment when you're scouting boards whether or not you go this build to see if there's another TF player. Because if there is a TF player, you may want to think twice there, because they could ruin your game by going for a 3-star Draven, same as you. I have competed with it before, and I did end up 3-starring my Draven. Obviously, that's not going to be the case most of the time. So just kind of look at it on a case-to-case basis, how your game's going. If you're seeing that they're diehard forcing Twisted Fate, maybe try a different route. But regardless, you can make it work without a 3-star Draven. You just won't cap as high, so you may not win full-on games with it. So just play it by ear, game by game, and go from there. I find that this build absolutely clears boards. I'm still playing it to this day. I probably will play it till the For Fun patch comes out. Let me know how you do with this build as well. What your cash out threshold is. If you have a differing opinion of myself on when to cash out. Again, I strive for 4-7, but 9 times out of 10 go 4-3. And then if you like this content, you like the meta builds, videos, make sure you subscribe below, like the video. It helps me, hopefully helps you in the future with these gameplay videos. Help you learn a little thing or two regarding positioning, items, builds, stuff like that. I'm always learning as well, so don't hesitate to let me know things I've missed in the comments below. Beta's coming out July 16th, I believe, for the new set, so you'll see a lot of that coming to my YouTube channel then. But until then, enjoy this last fight. I do believe we lose here, and after a good valiant effort from 8th with 1 health through stage 5, we made it to stage 6-5 to finish second. I think that's a great result that I'll take. You will ultimately end up losing to a capped out Boombot board because it's just the best in the business. But regardless, it was a good run, great build. I highly recommend it. And as always, good luck on the grind. I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. Let's watch this together quick before I get out. Oh yeah, that's not even fair. That Boombot build is so capped. I strive so hard to play it every game, but can't win them all, right? It was close. It was a tank off, but ultimately we lost. So have a good one. I'll catch you guys on the next one.